have a job to do, and they're doing it well.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you have ultimates. And communication ultimates is everybody's responsibility. But you need at least one person to start talking about those ultimates before each fight, early before each fight. Okay? I don't want you to be sitting in a choke and then start talking ultimates and then figuring out a plan. The shot caller needs that information to figure out his plan.
Okay. Okay.
So once you start talking about that stuff, why are you coming back from spawn or right after the fight? Okay? Win or lose, you talk about that stuff. I don't want to just those teams that don't talk about ultimates after they win a fight.
Okay.
And one person brings up the conversation, tries to fill in as many gaps as possible, and then everyone else chimes in and corrects them when they're wrong. Because if player A is responsible for it and gets something wrong, it's everybody's fault because everyone had a chance to correct it. That makes sense?
Okay. All right. Cool.
Question about shot calling.
Go for it.
Is that going? Whoever the target caller or shot caller is, should that stay consistent regardless of team comp, or does it change based on what heroes you're
Good
running?
question.
I like it being consistent as much as possible. Typically, you're not going to be changing your roles too much. However, there are some situations where, like, let's say your off tank's playing Sombra or something, and then you can't really do the same stuff. So in that situation, you may need to delegate to someone else for that specific comp if they're not going to be positioned to make that call. Okay. Also, be aware that you don't rely on that one person to do all of the shot calling and target calling mid-game fourth. Because what happens when they die?
Well, then you won't have a shot caller anymore.
Exactly. So everyone has to be able to pick up the slack in that situation. Target caller shot caller can communicate, hey, I'm dead. Keep up the comms. And then you need to make sure that you have a secondary system in place. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just make sure you continue target calling as necessary and make sensible plays. Just because he's dead doesn't mean he can't communicate, but he probably doesn't have as much information as he normally would.
Right.
You also need to make sure that you guys are aware of the current status of the fight. What I mean by that is, are we up 2? Are we down 2? Do we have no supports? Do they have no supports? Do they have no tanks? Etc. Do we need to be watching out for a barrage? Etc. Etc. So make sure to have at least someone. Anybody can do it, and everyone should be looking to do that. But when you're dead, make sure you're still contributing to your team. Being able to tell us, hey, it's an even fight, or if it's winnable, or if it's lost, clearly and accurately, the real important thing, is going to make sure that you don't waste time and ultimates on a bad fight, or let a possible good fight slip away because you misjudge the situation.
Okay.
When you are in a fight, in the middle of a fight, it's difficult to keep track of the current status of that fight. So people that are dead, speak from the grave. Seriously, it really helps.
I like that. Okay.
Also, give communication on when you'll be back if you have the possibility of coming back to a long, drawn-out fight. Hey, I'm coming back. 3 seconds, 5 seconds. Be accurate on that timeline. Don't tell me 3 seconds and take 8.
Okay. All right, sweet. Did anybody have any other questions regarding comms? All right, cool. All right, my second one was this is more like managerial type things for the team, but we've been around for about 7 months now. I was kind of curious, what is some of the best ways that you've seen to kind of staff a team in terms of like running mains, like having a set stack of 6 that you run with in every game. Having subs for those people, having an A and B team, and also kind of like what kind of management do you have that is it a good thing to have a coach, assistant coach, a manager, stuff like that?
Good question. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So, A and B teams work well if you can get 2 comparable teams together, or if you have a bit to be able to scrim each other and work with each other, but that typically doesn't happen. What happens when you have an A and B team is that you're going to have an A team and you're going to have a B team.
Yeah.
And the A team is going to want to be the best they can, and the B team is going to feel left behind.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always happen. There can be comparable teams and be able to help each other out. There's a college team that I helped has 3 teams, and their B team became better than their A team because they didn't let the B team syndrome get to them.
Nice.
So that is just what to expect with the A team, B team thing. If you're just gonna have one team and sub people in and out, have a reason to sub them in. Like it depends. Like it depends on how serious / casual the team is. Okay, so from if I was gonna say, coaching the Hurricane in that situation, I'd be like, okay, cool. We're gonna put the best people in the slot. The only time we'd sub someone in is if we don't have enough practice for those players, and we're going to beat this team anyway, and we've got like some prospect we want to be seeing what they're capable of doing, getting some playtime in there.
Okay.
Otherwise, your bench players are going to see a lot of bench, and then you're going to see a lot of playing time because we want the best players to have the most experience and synergy with the team because that's your best chance to win. And then you get the more casual approach where, okay, let's everybody get, half the playing time here and half the playing time there. And that way no one feels bad about it. But at the same time, you've got this synergy with, oh, right, well, now I'm playing with this guy instead. So I expected this, but I actually got this. Or this guy doesn't communicate the same way as this guy. Or this guy's just not as good as this guy. And, it's more equitable. There we go. But it's, not the best way to get the best team possible. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So that's up to you guys.
Okay.
As far as assistant coach, manager, I don't think you need a ton of staff, especially for a non-professional team. I was a one-man show when I was coaching for Dignitas. I should not have been, but I was both team manager and coach. It's possible, but it does take away some of the things that you could be focusing on. In the Hurricane, I had a team manager, which helped a lot. I also got an assistant coach kind of coming in. Assistant coach didn't help very much, I'll be honest with you. Team manager helped a lot. So in my experience, having a team manager and a coach, and maybe a team manager you can bounce with some knowledge that you can bounce guys up will be optional, but not all team managers have the same sort of game knowledge as a coach would have.
Right.
But I don't think there's enough for 3 people.
Okay.
At least at this stage. As you go into professional level, yeah, I can see 3.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, the next part is I was going to ask you, what are some effective ways of scrimming, and what kinds of things should we be scrimming for? So
good question. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, understand what scrims are for. They are not for figuring shit out. Understood? You're doing that.
Okay.
You're doing scrims wrong, and you're wasting time in them. You figure shit out and have plans before you go into scrims. And scrims are for the execution of plans that you already know about. Okay?
Okay.
So you should have a plan, a good plan, knowing what comp you're going to run in, what you're going to do if they do X, Y, or Z. What are they going to do if they have X, Y, or Z comp on every single point of every single map on attack and defense. You figure that shit out first before you scrim that map. And then once you have a plan on those maps, then you scrim those maps. And you figure out, okay, how good are our plans? As you play on that and try to execute it well, you need to be aware of whether or not you're failing or succeeding and why. Are you failing because the plan is bad or the execution is bad? Because I can see many good plans go to waste because of bad execution and they gave up on it. I've also seen many bad plans get too much leverage because the enemy team is doing stupid shit.
I think we have a perfect example of that for you later, actually. I have a VOD for you later with that exact situation, but continue, sorry.
So it sounds like something I've seen. Sounds like I'm explaining something you guys experienced before, right?
Yes, I think that's accurate.
Most definitely.
And Then you need to figure out, okay, if it's an execution problem, how do you solve it? Sometimes the execution is just too damn hard. And if that's the case, you need a better, more simple plan. There are other plans available. Trust me. And then make sure that you have that little transition period. But give it a chance in that situation. Make sure that you diagnose it correctly. And diagnosing it correctly is what your coach's job should be.
Okay. So I have a question. So like so before you do anything with a team, do you come up with plans for every map and discuss them with them and talk about X, Y, and Z before you do any scrimming or playing together?
Good question. No, because that takes too much time for me typically in that situation. If I was a full-time coach for one team, like I was with the Hurricane right now, yeah, that's what we did.
Okay.
Absolutely we did. And we might try and understand, we might try some exotic shit in some scrims early on because we don't have any matches coming up. And just see what it's like. And it's okay to experiment with stuff in scrims. You had a plan first, but don't experiment stuff on the fly.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
You can make decisions on the fly. Like, okay, let's try this and see if it works. But don't try to do too many random comps or random comps mostly on the fly like that situation. A comp should have a good idea of what everybody's responsibility and role is on that point and what you're trying to accomplish, what your win condition is going to be, what your positioning is going to be. All that needs to be sorted out before you actually execute it. That makes sense?
Yes.
But once you are there, and let's say they come across something that you haven't prepared for, well, now you do have to think on the fly to a degree and make sure you come up with a right idea. You might not get that right idea first off. It might take a while to get it. But that's what VOD reviews are for. Look at it and say, okay, what should we have done? Oh, shit, why don't we just fucking do this? And understand that making mistakes early can make the right things later more difficult.
Okay.
This game is a big snowball. So if you run the wrong comp into the enemy team one or two times and then go to the right comp is probably going to lose to their comp, even if it's superior, because they have ultimates. They have momentum. Make sense?
Yes.
Or they have positional advantage.
So I just want to clarify. So let's say we get done with this, right? And I don't have written plans yet for all of the maps, exactly what we're running and how we're going to run them. Would you suggest we go through, the coach, myself, and some other people go through these maps and just come up with plans and talk about, win conditions?
Everybody involved, in my opinion.
Everybody? Okay.
Everybody get into a custom game, start talking about it. And that way you can ask, hey, man, can you do this? You know how to do this? And they can give suggestions on stuff you might not thought about. It's better to have multiple minds in there than none. Make sure that no one can kill anyone in the game. Trust me, I've had experiences in custom games in that situation.
They just sit there and kill each other.
Genji Unlimited Dash, everybody dies. Ha ha, I'm distracted. But
yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
And encourage feedback from players and encourage questions from players. That way you don't have to try to explain it twice while figuring out. They know why, because they were there when you talked about it and figured it out, potentially. Now, sometimes people can't always make that stuff. Obviously, this means more time toward this team. So, if, in that case, you might just need to have, like you said, you and the coach and those that can do the time to get there. But I think there's benefit in getting more people involved.
Okay. Okay. All right, so when we're doing VOD reviews, I think you kind of already answered this, but when we're doing the VOD reviews, what kinds of things are we looking for? It sounds like you were talking about us looking for what's going right, what's going wrong, and how to adjust our plans that we already have. Or is there something else we should be kind of looking at while we're doing that?
Why'd you lose a fight?
Okay.
Simply, try to figure out why you're losing fights. You're not expected to win every fight. So if you look at a fight and they had 5 ultimates and you had 1, and they pop 4, okay. But what did you do about it? Like, did you allow yourself to now get an ultimate advantage yourselves? Did you recognize this situation and not invest your one ultimate in that situation, or any other big ultimate that you didn't need to? Did you do a dry fight? Did you try to come up with a plan with a possible win condition that puts pressure on them, that forced them to use more ults than necessary? A good team is only going to use as many ults as necessary to win. So if they have 5 ults and you have 1 ult, a good team's not going to use 4 ults. They're going to use 1 ult or maybe 2 ults and win that way, and then start spending their ult economy wisely. At the same situation, are you doing that? Did you have 5 ults and all of a sudden pop 4?
Okay.
You might have won the fight, but how costly was that fight? And did it lose you the next fight because of how costly it was?
Okay. That makes sense.
Positioning, super important. Communication is really important. And judge your shot calling and target calling. Is your shot caller giving out the proper plays? Is he getting the proper feedback? Is the target calling the right targets? Are people listening to the target call? This kind of stuff.
Okay. Hold on, I'm gonna write everything down. Give me 1 second.
Are we calling grab bombs, but our success rate of grab bombs below 50%? Why is that the case? What's going on? Is our diva sliding hockey pucks in there like the forehead?
All right. Okay. This is kind of more of like a, not specifically with a team. Should we give a shit about SR climbing in this team? Like, well, right now we've been really focused on like kind of doing individual stuff, but we're also doing our team stuff too. But we have some discrepancies with SR within the team, meaning like there's some wide variance there. Should that be something that we should focus on, or is it something that we should really just like kind of focus on team stuff first and then make the SR stuff a secondary thing that they work on their own?
It completely depends on what your goal is. Is your goal to think of it as like a development time for a video game, okay? You've got $1 million to spend, and you're going to spend that money developing this game. And right now you're talking about your game, so it's like a PvP experience. Are you going to spend all your money to make the best PvP possible, or are you going to take away some of that money and just start working on a PvE experience, aka your individual SR ranking in that situation? Every dollar and every minute spent on PvE is going to be taken away from that PvP experience potentially. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to put, putting another dollar in your PvP experience is going to make it equally better than your PvE experience. Right. There is diminishing returns to an extent, but depending on how much time you guys are putting on here, I don't think you're going to hit that diminishing returns. So, just understand that if you do put more focus on the SR rating in that situation, as a team, then you might be losing some of it on your teamwork. So, also, how much more time do you want on your team? Like, sometimes you feel like, perhaps you're plateauing in a certain expectations, and figure out how you can get past that plateau. So the answer is, it depends on what your goal is.
Okay.
And what your priorities are.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a clear answer. This is I think the last one I have on here. It says, at our current level, what are some main things that each role should focus on for improving?
Like, how do you play each role in the game?
Yeah, so I think the question, and Swat, you can correct me because you wrote it, but I think he's asking, like, if we're playing main tank or something, like, what are some things that main tank should really be focusing on in those scrims, or like DPS? Is that what you were talking about, Swat?
Yeah, as well as just to like improve at our level. Like, what are some common mistakes you see each role making?
I could write a freaking book on that question. All right, I will not be scratching the surface on these answers, but off the top of my head, main tank. If you're playing Reinhardt, maintaining your shield health. and helping to win the shield war. It's okay to trade out health for shield because I can't heal your shield.
Okay.
And when your shield is low, our only option is to speed out and escape, and that typically doesn't work against a good team. So usually just ends up in them killing us. The shield war is really important.
Okay.
Unless we're able to put them on their back foot and get a pick before our shield breaks. Making sure that you put yourself in a spot that you can utilize a corner is really important for Reinhardt. Taking fights for that are too long, that are not decisive in the open, when you don't have a corner to fall back to, will be your downfall.
Okay.
I'm not saying avoid open spaces all the time. I'm just saying if you take a fight there, you better take a decisive fight there.
Okay.
Because there ain't no retreat.
I like it. Okay.
The shorter the pin, the better. Always.
Why are you guys laughing?
All right.
It's okay to shatter one dude. Don't save it for the 5-man shatter. If we can shatter one person and kill them, we win 80% of the time. Okay? Now, I'm not saying only shatter one person the majority of the time. I'm just saying don't be afraid to shatter someone out of position that is in a cocky spot, especially if you know that they don't have any invulnerability to it.
Okay.
There's a Zarya kicking your kidney, and you're far enough from the enemy team that you can be able to put your shield down for a few seconds and survive it. Has she already used her self bubble? Then plant her ass on the ground and kill her. Understand the status of your team and yourself are not one and the same. I often see Reinhardts try to be aggressive when their team isn't with them, or try to get the entire team to be defensive just because they're low.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's very detrimental to the team. I often see a situation where, hey, my Reinhardt has 150 health, his shield is 400 health, he's telling the team to back off, and everyone else on the team is perfectly healthy, and the enemy team is half dead.
Okay.
Or their Reinhardt is literally like Discord, gasping for breath. Everybody, back up! I'm low!
So you essentially just tell the rest of the team just push in, and you kind of take a side seat for that fight.
You tell your team that you have to fall back.
Okay.
And let your team decide whether they can still be aggressive in that situation. Okay?
Okay.
And your team needs to understand that if they're going to be aggressive, it's going to be without their Reinhardt. And if that's worth the call, which often it is, then make it happen.
Okay.
If you get an advantage, but you're half dead, don't kill yourself trying to chase the rest of the kills.
Okay.
It's okay to do a soft reset and try to heal up, and because that person's not coming back for about 20 seconds. And we can win that fight slowly afterwards and speed on to them after we get ourselves healed. Us at full strength and them at full strength means we win. Us at half strength and 5 people at full strength on their team means that we lose still, even though we have more numbers.
Okay.
DPS, what's that? Have you been in this meta?
Yeah, I feel so hurt.
It's supposed to change now,
But
right?
is he wrong, Lane Shade?
No.
So tips for DPS and mistakes. Sometimes I've seen a huge mistake where people click on a DPS hero and then click select.
God,
I
Rose.
think it's like misclick or something. Simple fix is to hit H and click one of those tanks.
Do you feel like, I guess this is kind of a derivation of this, do you feel like things are going to change with the current patch?
Let's talk about this. Is this console or is this PC?
It's PC.
PC.
Okay, just making sure.
Clips.
Just making sure, because there will be different answers to that question based on that.
Okay.
I was pretty sure it's PC. I want to make sure. Yes, DPS will be more viable, but GOATS is not going away anytime soon.
Okay.
It's going to be different flavors for different situations and different maps and what your team is necessarily good at. Okay, so let's say there's a map that's like King's Row, like fantastic for tanks. You go DPS there. I'm not a big fan of it at all. I don't think you can beat a good GOATS variation team on King's Row. You go to, let's say, Gibraltar. And yes, I think a good DPS team can beat a GOATS team in that situation because of all the high ground and space that you can utilize in those situations. Not necessarily. I'm not saying it's a complete slaughter, but DPS is very effective in that situation. And there's also other variations that are also good that are beyond the staples that are viable or cheesy. But the DPS is still going to be, I think it's going to be a viable option now to a lot of extents, but it depends on how good the GOATS team is. Okay. I think an elite GOATS team is going to have the advantage on most situations against an elite DPS team. But I think a decent DPS team can beat a decent GOATS team. So as the higher level you go up, the stronger GOATS becomes.
Interesting. Okay. So just to finish off with the other roles real quick, so I'm not leaving anybody out. I think you were talking about DPS.
I already talked about DPS.
Just don't pick them.
No.
All right.
So a big thing about DPS is when you click a DPS and choose a DPS, if you have a specific plan for it, you should already know what hero it's going to be. But make sure that whatever hero you have is the best hero in that situation. If you are a McCree, ask yourself, why are you not an Ashe? Why are you not a Widow? Why are you not a Soldier? What is the pros and cons to your choice of McCree versus the pros and cons of those other heroes that were similar to that role, but you chose not to play? And understand what those differences are. I can't think of too many reasons why you would have a Soldier over an Ashe, but there might be a reason. Right now, I think Ashe is one of the strongest, most versatile DPS heroes in the game.
Interesting.
And I think Soldier is pretty meh. McCree is very situational. And Widow is solid, but a pocketed Ashe can give you what Widowmaker gives you. So,
true.
Give me Bob and TNT. But if you don't have a Mercy, Widow wins.
All right. Supports?
Don't die.
Don't. Get wrecked.
I actually do have a question for you.
Sure.
So I play Lucio mainly. So is it more beneficial to try to push up with the main tanks or stay back with the healers and stuff? Because I know you want to speed the whole team in GOATS and everything, but once mid fight happens, do you want to stick back or play more aggressive?
Good question. Okay. So it partially depends on what the hell you're going up against. Okay. So if your supports have flankers that they need to worry about from the enemy team, then you need to have at least half a mind to make sure you peel for them, or you're there when you need them. Communication is there, and you be where you need it. If they don't have that, then why the hell are you back there?
Okay, makes sense.
I want you, if it's goats versus goats, you are funny Astro, man. You are aggressive. You are behind them, making sure that you don't die. Hell, you might even need a Zarya bubble to get out. Okay? I want you to utilize your boop effectively. Communicate it. I do not want a satellite Lucio on my team. Get out, if you are. Thank you. He's gone. Not kidding. But seriously, I don't want satellite Lucios on my team. I hate them. It's like the laziest role I have ever seen in a composition, thinking I can just chill in the middle of my pack, shoot in the general direction of the enemy team, and just make sure I'm on hit shift on one aura or another aura, and that's my job done.
Okay, awesome.
No.
I hate playing Lucio like that.
Spiffy's,
That's not how a Lucio plays. That's how a gold Lucio plays.
Spiffy's very happy to hear that, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But to make it clear, you want him to communicate what he's doing, right? If he's going to go do something crazy, he should ask for permission or like ask for a bubble.
No, if he needs a
Not
bubble,
permission.
ask for a bubble.
Yeah.
Zarya should be in position to give him a bubble if needed. Okay, expect him to need a bubble. What else is Zarya doing here other than right clicks? If he's doing something crazy like between fights, he better be able to get him a bubble. If it's mid fight already, then they probably can't afford too much attention to him because they're focusing their Reinhardt because everyone has eyes for Reinhardt.
All right.
Which means that Lucio can go on their Zen from the back and just solo him if necessary, if they're bad and if they're not paying attention. And if not, then he could get a boop on the Reinhardt and engage. Now we've got so many plays with your boop. Seriously, Lucio is useless if he's like in your back line. Useless. Like, why even have a Lucio there for the most part? You want that boop involved. And you can't get those boops from the front.
So, how do you feel about Doomfist?
What about him?
Okay, got it.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna change my profile picture, guys. I'll be right back.
All right, so I think if you guys got a badass Doomfist, that you should look for ways to utilize him creatively, but don't listen to him when he says, "Oh, I can Doomfist this every single time." Okay?
I never say it.
Yes, you do.
So this is what I think you do. When we talked about going over maps and VOD reviews, that's your time to talk to both the coaches and explain what you can do on Doomfist and what your role is going to be. The big thing about Doomfist in this game is that he can do a lot, but typically what Doomfists have a really big problem with is trying to do a lot and everything by them fucking selves.
Yeah.
And if that's the kind of Doomfist that you're going to be using, then I don't want you. But if you're the type of Doomfist that can do a lot of shit, and then we have a follow-up available with the rest of our team that can do that, then Doomfist can be really, really effective at disrupting the enemy team, getting some picks, getting a bunch of attention, and us utilizing that to put them in a spot where we can take advantage of it. So it's all about how you use your Doomfist with the rest of your team and knowing what your role is and your team knowing what you're trying to do so we can follow up on it. That makes sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So, especially, I think it can be viable. It's a completely different win condition than other compositions. And one of the big things you have to understand is typically teams have to learn one win condition at a time. We're playing goats. This is our win condition. We do this. All right, now with Sombra, our win condition slightly changed. Okay, we're going to try with this, be a little more passive, earn the EMP. We have less shield damage. Okay, we're playing with DPS, spam DPS, so we're going to keep our distance, whittle them down, look for opportunities, communicate it. All right, we have Doomfist now, so we're going to go for boops. We're going to try to engage him in this corner, so we already have someone coming from Hotel in this situation to do a pincer attack. We're doing dives, so we're going to set up our dives so we can engage. All these setups are completely different from one another.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're going to do ahead of time, you're just kind of winging it, and that's not going to work.
Interesting.
Okay.
I got one more. Let's see how late it's re. Why? Who wrote this one? The Farah or the Bercy question? I'll ask it. Fuck it. It says, "Is Mercy a strong character to play with? In what ways is she strong? Who is she strong to play with besides Farah?"
I don't like Mercy,
Okay.
but she has some strengths. And yes, let's
Okay.
talk about it. She has no nothing to do with tanky compositions for the most part, but she's great at being able to deal with spread out compositions. Okay.
Okay.
So, what she's good at is for like triple DPS or pharmacy compositions that are spread out and are meant to surround. Your support should be a Mercy. You might have two supports. You can do a single support Mercy. You can be very careful, but it's doable, and it can be pretty effective. So, basically, in that spread where she can go from point to point and knowing where her next anchor point is going to be, she's like almost impossible to kill, especially with tanks. Like, she's basically invulnerable.
Okay.
You have little healing, so you're a very glass cannon, but it can be very effective, especially when you have the fair in that situation. And I just mentioned earlier that she can be very effective when you're pocketing an Ash, because now you have a Widowmaker with TNT and that shoots faster and has a bob, as opposed to a Widowmaker that has a grapple hook and infrared, and that's it.
Okay. Okay, so that was actually the end of our questions for here. When you were going through this, before I open it up for everybody else, did you have anything that you think that we didn't ask that you think would be a really big thing that we should know as kind of like an amateur team, like something that we should keep in mind? Yeah? No? You there, Shifty?
Good talk. I didn't hear a single word anyone said. You asked me. Okay. Were you asking me that question, or are you asking your team that question?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you. So before I open up
Oh,
for everybody
okay.
else to do it, I was asking you. Yeah, based on your extensive experience dealing with teams and stuff, we're kind of like an amateur
Okay.
team. So like,
Yeah.
if we didn't ask the right questions, I kind of wanted to see like if you're like, oh wow, I'm surprised I didn't like think of this.
A lot of these questions were good.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to, you probably should have asked is, what's a good practice regime in terms of time?
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Because I see a lot of teams have. It's just like any other thing. Like the more and less you practice, even if structured correctly, the more and less you're going to get out of it. And obviously, that's very difficult for the larger group of people to make sure that they have time for each other in that situation. So, how often are you guys planning to scrim and practice and VOD review and talk about stuff, etc.?
Okay. Currently, right now, we're doing. It's 4 days of practice throughout the week with our scrims on Thursdays, and we have a tournament that we're playing in, and then we have open division on the weekends. So we play two like kind of stage type games, and then we have practice throughout the week. Usually VOD reviews on Monday, and then practice Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday scrim.
What did you just? I just heard practice and scrim as a separate thing. So what is that? What's a practice and then?
So the practice would just be us playing. I guess I have to kind of explain it back a little bit further. But before, what we were doing is we had a coach that came in that was doing collegiate stuff, and he kind of advised us to scrim as much as humanly possible. That was kind of his suggestion for us. So we were running Monday through Thursday scrims, and then we'd have like a tournament game at the end.
Okay.
We switched it to be a little bit more relaxed in terms of scrimming because we weren't able to get the numbers that we needed every single night. Meaning we just picked Thursday for our scrim days, and then the practice days, meaning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and scrim is definitely practice too. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are reserved more for like us either doing VOD reviews or doing comp grind or something together.
All right.
Definitely not flawless. That's kind of why we would like to know like what would be the best kind of efficient way for doing that.
I don't often agree with others' advice, but I agree with that guy's advice on that situation where scrimming is a good idea. And let me give you a ratio of about 75-25 on scrims /VOD review. Okay?
Interesting. Okay.
That should be a ratio. 75% scrims, 25% VOD review.
Okay.
And VOD review / going over stuff. Like, now at the beginning, when you don't have plans for every map, it's not going to be the same ratio, okay? In that situation, I probably want it 50-50.
Okay.
So until you have actually plans. But once you have the plans set in stone, not in stone, but like, you have your plans internalized, you know what you're going to be doing, and then I want 50-50 transition more to 25-75. So that 50% you're utilizing earlier to set up your plays and go over VOD reviews is now going to be strictly going over your previous scrims, talking about potential alterations or successes on your strategies, and 75% on the execution.
Hi, honey. Okay, that makes sense.
So 1 scrim per week, no bueno.
You don't like that? Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Not a no.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that stood out to you as something that we probably should have asked you that we didn't?
Not off the top of my head. That's most of it. Although everything else is more situational.
Okay. I think the last question that I had specifically for me was just more like in terms of, us getting set up. If we have this structure that we've been doing for a long time, is it totally okay for us to just kind of rework it and do kind of what you're talking about and kind of go through it? Or do you feel like that's kind of a shakeup, or that's something we should kind of discuss with the team and figure out?
I think that my advice is good advice. I'm biased.
Fair enough.
So I also think that it should be this. I think anything that's going to drastically change with the team should be discussed with the team and make sure it's the best thing for the team, because people join this team under certain expectations.
Right.
And if you change those expectations, it may not be fair to them, or they may not be able to live up to them. So they need to be able to voice those concerns. And ultimately, you need to do what's best for the team as a whole. That may be including their concerns, it may be compromising with their concerns, or it may be excluding their concerns.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I'll kind of open it up. Did anybody have anything from the team, one at a time, that you guys had any specific questions you wanted to ask him? Nothing. Wow. Okay.
Wait,
I have a
was that?
question.
Sure, fire.
All right, so if you could suggest like one, like what would you give as like the most important tip for an Ana player?
Land your sleep darts, don't miss your shots, and make good nades. No, positioning is super important. Making sure that you communicate very well. I want you to I call it a prime and confirm. So it works really well for Ana. It's also applicable to some other heroes. But if you're looking to sleep something or grenade something, in particular an anti, I want you to prime the team about it. It means let the team know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So I'm going to sleep monkey. Before you sleep monkey, I'm going to look for an anti here. I'm going to, use my grenade here. And then once you do use the cooldown, then confirm what happens. I missed him. You can shoot him now. Or, all right, I got Ryan heal blocked, or 2 heal blocked, or I missed my nade. This is important so that people don't wake up while you're trying to sleep, and that's only a possibility if you confirm it beforehand. And on antis, we make sure we have follow-up available. It's not, oh, they're purple, and like, I'm already backing up trying to get out of here. That's nice. It's more of, okay, I'm going to expect the purple. I'm going to expect to be aggressive. I'm in position that if this hits, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, use your nano boost proactively. And I can't stress that enough. My biggest problem I see with Anas is that they use them like other support ults, and it's not. If you try to use your nano boost to turn a lost fight into a won fight, you probably lose the fight, and you just wasted your ult. Nana boosts are meant to turn an even fight into an advantage, into being aggressive. It's really powerful, especially if it's the first ultimate in the game, which often it is. So against, for example, against Ana goats versus Zen goats, if you can get your nano before they can get any of their ults, which is likely because you're the fastest charging ult of everyone involved, then you can use your nano boost on the Rhine to go super aggressive on them and win the first fight. I mean, you kind of get screwed for, grabs later, and if you better land some antis and, got some problems with your shield damage and, no discord, but you can win the first fight with that. And making sure that you use your Nana boost aggressively to put them on the back foot and make them play reactive is important, not just for Ana's ult, but in general, being a proactive team and making them have to choose to react to you. The proactive team chooses the playing field, chooses what game we're playing. The reactive team has to play within the constraints of the game that the proactive team chose, which limits their options, which is exactly what you want. If they have more limited options, then they have less good options, and they become more predictable.
I like it.
All right, cool.
Anybody else? Well, I think we're actually approaching. We're at probably 3 minutes left.
8 minutes out, 5 minutes late.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. Anybody else
I'm
have
not
any questions?
stingy, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Will we be able to show him the Hanamura VOD?
It doesn't look like we're gonna have time for it.
Let's take a look at it real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
We're doing the Hanamura VOD? Oh.
I'm not gonna do all of it, but show me what part you want me to see.
I feel like I don't know if this is a good use of the time because I think the answer is just going to be this is probably a shit comp, but we can look at it really quick.
Well, tell me the comp, and I'll tell you if it's a shit comp.
For
I'll just
defend?
post it. Hold on. All right, so that's the VOD in general.
All right, what's timestamp am I looking at?
Oh, is this the Nevermore?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
What timestamp should I look at?
I have no clue on this one.
Defense first point, defense second point, attack first point, attack second point.
Let's do defense first point. I think it's probably a good one. Yeah, so timestamp being, let's see, when we were first set up, we press tab, is going to be, hold on.
140.
I'd say
130.
wait for the tab. 130?
Oh, yeah, so look at the comp. I'm just looking at the comp here. Okay, so we've got double shield Bastion May. Is that what I see here?
Yes.
You lose the dive. Next question.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And then they just kind of held it, and I was really confused.
You lose the dive. Next question. Like, seriously.
Okay.
Why do you even have a freaking mercy with this? Is it just for like the damage boost?
The res too, yeah.
If you get to a situation with this bunker comp that anyone dies, you ain't resing anyone.
Okay.
They do. They res like.
Yeah.
They may.
You shouldn't get res.
To be clear, we are playing against very low tier teams, so it is very
how low.
I mean, we're playing against
plat
plat diamonds.
Okay, so anything can go in plat.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, that's this loses to a dive. So, do you want me to give you advice for like this could work against plats because they don't know how to play fucking dive because they don't even know what a fucking dive is anymore. It hasn't been a meta for a year. But any team that knows how to play different compositions, it just loses the dive. Like, yeah, this beats tanks. Good job.
I love it
good
so
to know.
much.
All right, let's. Do we have any more questions from the team?
I had a, I guess, coaching-esque question.
Sure.
Perfect.
How direct? Like, I feel like sometimes I'm really direct, and I just kind of feel like I'm like talking them down sometimes. And I feel like I need.
Good question.
Should I pick my battles on what I'm gonna like?
Good question.
Tell them to.
I like a ratio on negative to positive things I talk about. Okay. So when I say negative, I mean things to improve. Nothing's really negative. Everything is like you have so many things to improve. You've got 1,001 things to improve, and part of trying to get better is figure out which ones. What are these 1,001 things, and what are the most important 1,001 things, or what's the most important? Let's say 10 things that we should be focusing on. So no one should feel too bad about giving critical advice, or hey, you want to improve, then do this better, do this more often. You shouldn't have done this. Learn from this. But typically, I like to try to do around the 70% giving them advice that's going to help them, and 30% giving them compliments when they do something good. Typically, that 30% gets bigger or smaller depending on how many things you can compliment them on. I'll be honest, but there are times where my team just does really well, pop it off, good job, and
Nice.
I got nothing bad to say. I guess you could have done this, but you steamrolled them. Good job. Every single ultimate you used was effective. Communication was perfect. Your aggression was fantastic. You did a great job of dealing with this. Well done. And then there are times where I've got very little positive to say, and I just try to if you get full cap with 5 minutes remaining, which I'm not sure is possible or not, but
Ouch. Hey, it happened on Rialto.
try to simplify the main mistakes so you don't have too many things. Hey man, we never use a single our ults. We didn't get value out of them. We never grouped up. And we didn't talk about their ultimates. We didn't have any plans whatsoever. We just were asleep for the entire map. This map didn't happen. Forget it, but don't make it ever happen again.
Okay. I like it.
So wait, I have a question on
On what?
counter picking.
Yes.
So if there ever is a situation counter picking from such as we all get rolled and we're basically having to assess the situation, should we counter pick based on, or should we usually counter pick based on a single character, or should we always be trying to think about maximum value to put out on the enemy team with that one character or whole team?
Well, what do you mean by counter picking to get maximum? It'll explain that to me in a different way so that I make sure I'm on the same page with the question.
So, I guess
Give me an example.
A very simple version would be they go dive, so we're better at CC, so we try and go mass CC.
What the heck, CC?
Control. Crack
Hog,
control,
May.
Yeah, exactly. Flashbang,
Yeah.
shit like that.
Well, goats beats dive, so that'd be silly to go May against dive. May's not good against dive. I don't know if anyone thinks it is. You're wrong. Hog and McCree can be if you've got some elite Hog and McCree to deal with it. You're gonna have to make every flashbang and hook count, because if you miss one, you're gonna be donezo. Especially McCree. Typically what happens is a composition is going to be strong or weak against another composition. And swapping out one tool, understand whatever you swap out is going to leave your composition, your team, weaker at something at the cost of stronger at something else. Okay? And can you afford to be weaker at that? And is that strength worth that price? Are you going to be able to do that job to make sure that to make up for what you're paying for? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
But typically you want to have a composition that is going to be either good or counters what the enemy team has. In fact, what you should always do on attack is send the Sombra out there, at the very beginning of the match, put a translocator in spawn, send Sombra out there, and find out what composition they're running. That's why if you're taking this particular piece of advice to heart, and they send a Sombra out there and they see that crap, then you're probably going to expect either a Sombra themselves to stay on there or some dive there, and you're going to get rolled over first fight, because I'm not running tanks in that shit. You don't get a first fight. You don't get that gift. I see what you have. I'm not dumb enough to run my face into that. That's a masher. I don't want to be mashed. But when you're playing first point defense, you don't have that luxury, do you? So you're going to have to do a defense that's good against what you expect them to have and what you expect them to be capable of playing. So if you expect them to not know what dive means, then correct comp here. If you expect them to go tanks and not swap for 3 fights, then good comp here. But you're playing against bad people with bad practices, and don't let that success mean that this composition is good overall.
Exactly.
Because one team, once you come across a team that's got half a brain, then you're going to get countered immediately.
All right, that makes sense. Do we have any more time for questions, or is that kind of the end?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, we'll take one more. Does anybody have any other questions they want to ask him?
I just kind of wanted your opinion on Baptiste. Like, how you feel about him as a hero. Do you think he's going to change the meta? Do you think he may replace a hero within GOATs?
Good question. No clue.
Good to know.
let me elaborate though. You have to understand that in the past, when new heroes have come out for the most part, there have been predominant tournaments featuring them, or at least practicing with him prior to his inclusion. Like I can tell you, with every single hero that's come out, we would always go into PTR and practice and scrim in those PTR realms to see how it goes off with other teams because we know what's coming up.
Yeah.
Currently, you've got both Overwatch League and contenders playing on the previous patch, for the most part. So and those are teams that actually set the meta. Any team that's other doing PTR scrims, they're going to have inconclusive results. And this is the reason, because no one knows how to use him to his full effectiveness or counter him to his full effectiveness. So all that revolves around him right now is theory crafting. And even with people, actually using him, like it took GOATs like 5 or 6 weeks before it became the dominant meta.
Yeah.
When it could have been, when Brigade was introduced, like at its full strength. One team kind of started out, GOAT, I think it was,
GOAT.
that they started out early and they made some waves, but another team tried to copy it, but we just destroyed them on DPS compositions because they didn't play them well. So it took another 6 weeks for people to start playing it well to counter those DPS compositions, to learn that you don't have to stand there in the open and just get killed by barrage and spam, that you can actually use the terrain to hide behind shit.
Did your team Hurricane, did they play against GOAT?
Yeah, we smashed them. But it wasn't an official match. It was just a scrim because we were just curious how basically it's like, hey, they just fucking smashed Fusion University. Let's see how it's like.
Yeah.
We scrimmed them. We smashed them. Like, okay, his composition sucks. NA sucks. EU's better.
That's really funny. Swat, you had a question, didn't you?
Yes. So what advice would you have for a Sombra Tracer player? Other than
all right, so Sombra, I feel like can be a really important character in this meta. I think she's like the wild card. She can be used in GOAT. She can be used in dive. She can be very effective. Her EMP is really good. If you have a good Sombra player, Tracer is going to be very situational. So you'd only choose Tracer if you figure out, hey man, these guys suck at. These guys are completely vulnerable to dive. Let's go dive. Hey, that sounds familiar. But so in those situations, you pull it out, set up the pinch. Never try to do something on your own as Tracer. Always set up a dive. Super important. Tanks plus Tracer equals dead. Tracer alone or tanks alone means Tracer's dead or tanks are dead. So make sure that you can get there at the exact same time as your tanks do. So that's why it's called setting up the dive. Now, Sombra, very, very similar. You want to set up situations, but understand your number 1 priority is stay alive. Okay, sure, yeah. But okay, what's your number 2 priority? It's going to be to build up ult charge. That is key. That is massive, especially against tank compositions. If you're not playing against tank compositions, then maybe not as many opportunities. But super important. I want you to be farming those EMPs. If we lose a fight, I want you to have ult next fight. Simple as that. Because when you have ult, we're not losing it. So that's super important. Make sure that you have a good escape plan when you're engaged in pressure, because you will be. I don't want you teleporting 5 feet to your left because you decided to attack them 5 feet from your translocator. And I don't want you tossing out your translocator in the middle of engaging so they see exactly where it is. Super important in that as well. I don't want you hacking shit that we can't do anything about. Unless it's something like a diva, just to get some free ult charge, and you're going to have it back up later, well in time before we actually engage anything. I don't want you hacking something and then, hey, Reinhardt's hacked, and our entire team is around 2 corners left. Be aware of the status of your team, okay? Be patient. Be opportunistic, but farm that fucking ult as much as you can. On a lost fight, I want you getting 30% ult charge. Hey, it's lost. Okay, cool. I'm getting 30% more ult charge. Maybe 40. I don't even care if I die.
Interesting. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. I think we've definitely gone over at this point, but thank you so much for coming, man. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's been a fantastic. Like, we have a ton of information. I have like literally, I think it's 4 pages of notes right now. Me just like typing everything that you wrote down. So
I wasn't joking about that book, man.
No, I'm serious. At one point, we should work together, and I'll write you up a book, and then we can put it to a publisher or something. But yeah, is there any parting words or any other thing you'd like to tell us as like a team or something?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to lose, because you should expect to lose because you guys are just starting out. But you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. And I want you guys to make sure that you don't face teams that can't expose your weaknesses. Okay. If you face a team that doesn't know how to run dive and can't punish this, you aren't learning anything. Like, this composition is not going to work once you improve. So what you're learning with this isn't really much at all. Okay. So find teams that are going to punish your mistakes. You want to be fighting against teams that are a little bit better than you. Teams that if you face them on 5 maps, you'll win 1 or 2.
Okay.
And those are the teams that will be the best way to judge yourself if you're improving. If you're able to beat them more often and be more consistent on beating them and learn from learn from your mistakes, and as they punish them, then you could. They're great opportunities to improvement. And hopefully, what happens is you start winning more maps. You start 5-0ing them, and then you tell them, "Sorry, we can't scrim you anymore. We're going up a level." Not necessarily that, but that's the concept.
That's an attitude to make friends in the league. By the way, that's how you do it. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Shifty. I really appreciate it. And I think I have another lesson with you at some point, but that'll probably be individual. But I super appreciate you coming by, man. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Let me know how things go.
Will do.
Thanks,
right.
man.
Pleasure meeting everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, take care.
Take it easy.
You too.
Bye.
Okay.
Don't say it, Lampshade.
I
Don't
knew
say
he was
it.
gonna say it, dude. Like, literally as soon
I
as you left.
hate that guy so
Dude,
much.
He's very animated. I like it.
Dude, I love it so much.
So, we've got some things to discuss as a team. I think we should just hit it right off the bat. Like,
We
because
suck.
I don't want to dance. Oh yeah, of course we suck. But I mean, that's something we've known for a while. Like, yes, we're doing well in a low tier tournament, but that doesn't mean that we're good. But we know that. We're aware of that. We're here to improve. Literally, everybody on this team is here to improve. Everybody sucks here. Let's just put it all on the table. We're here to improve, though.
Whoa.
All right, Ryan doesn't suck. He sucks a little bit at Widow because I killed him a few times. But everybody else.
Correct.
But no, seriously though, the important things I want to talk with you guys about, I think that we should definitely confront now, is the practice thing and how we want to structure this. Is this something, Allie, that you want to talk to us about privately first, or do you want to just discuss it with the team?
I mean, I think we should just discuss it
Okay.
with
All right.
everybody.
So one of the things that he brought up was that I wanted to ask him specifically how these, or actually he brought it up. I didn't even ask him this. He brought it up about how our practice schedule should be. So based on, let me pull up the notes real quick just to make sure I don't miss anything on here. He essentially wanted us to scrim all the time. So Coach D was not wrong. But the idea of it being that ratio of us scrimming, I think he said 50-50 until we come up with plans. We haven't really been writing down plans. We started to, and then we fell off on that again. I guess I'm
Plans are inbound
Okay.
sometime in the future.
Okay.
I
So
would give you a but I'm not quite sure how fast I can get through things.
sure. No, I mean, like he said, it's going to be a slow thing at the beginning where we have to kind of like build these things up. As a coach, how much do you want us to scrim and try these things out, or like go into custom games and figure these out with the team?
I like definitely one scrim is definitely at least, but two is probably like I guess the sweet spot for availability and like effective practice. Because once you're overworking yourselves, like sometimes that's not fun.
Yeah.
And you don't want it not to be fun.
Okay. So if we were to make a switch, it would be for 2 scrims a week, and then what would the other 2 days be during the week?
One day for random things I come up with as drills or like VOD reviews.
Okay.
Because like VOD review day has to exist.
Yes.
But I feel like it can be replaced by like the alt tracking drill that I think is either tomorrow or Wednesday that I wanted to do.
Okay. And then the other day would be
more of that
stuff. So either a VOD review or some sort of training on those other days.
Yeah.
Or even us sitting in at the beginning, sitting in a custom game and coming up with strategies to run on those. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So now we have the coach's perspective. I want to ask all the players, how do you guys feel about that? Because he said that we want to open this up. You guys have an expectation when you came on this team. You're here now, having talked to the coach. We now have a clear roadmap of what we want to do. We have a coach right now, Ryan, who's willing to put together plans and stuff. How do you guys feel about doing that, and moving forward with it?
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, I honestly want to hear from everybody. So, like J Rod, how do you feel about it?
I like it.
Okay. Pizza,
Wait, can you repeat your question real quick?
So the question was like us moving away from just doing the one scrim, having 2 days of just being very like loose, and then a VOD review day on Monday, to going to having 2 scrims ideally, and then the other 2 days being for a VOD review or specific training, aim training, or even at the beginning, us doing custom games and figuring out how to put these strategies together for these maps.
Okay.
So we'd still stay in the tournaments. It would just be a kind of a change, I guess, in the middle of the week more than anything else. I guess.
Yeah, I'm on board.
It seems like everybody's mostly on board. Does anybody have any objections? Let's put it that way, or anything that they want to make noted that they, in their personal situation, would like to talk about?
The only concern I have is just because of my schedule, I might not be able to make some of them. But as long as you guys have enough set up,
okay,
I'm board with it.
That would be my concern too.
Okay.
Also, while scrims are great, I would like to have some direction for like what I need to improve on, just because I feel like there's so much, just so I can have some focus on those particular things for all the scrim.
Okay, so you're talking about like individual, like a VOD review or something.
Yeah.
About what you should be working on during those scrims.
Right.
Okay.
I don't want to just like play like a bot during scrims and then be like,
I mean,
I sucked.
Yeah, that can happen. We can always do things like
happen.
that.
May I interject?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you guys think about, instead of like a specific VOD review, what if we did support like a role review? So instead of reviewing our VOD as a whole, maybe like once a week we did a role review where if you're a tank, an off tank, support, DPS, whatever you flex to, what if you reviewed that role as a whole with anyone on the team that can play or plays that role actively?
The only concern, I like that. The only concern I have with that is that we want to do VOD reviews for the team. So, like Shifty was saying, he wants us to like review. He wants to spend that time figuring out what the team did wrong. Why did we lose a fight? I don't want to discourage I don't want to like say no to like individual stuff or even role time investment. But based on like what he just told us, it seems like that time is supposed to be spent more on like, what did we do in this fight and how did the team either lose it or win it? Mostly like, how did we fuck it up? And if it's a role problem, then we could talk about that role during that fight. But I don't know. That's my personal opinion. Did anybody Does that make sense? Or
Uh,
What if we had like if we're doing like 2 days of VOD review and 2 days of scrims, what if we had like 1 day of each for the VOD review, like 1 day of like going over the full team stuff and like 1 day of role review?
what does the other team or
Would it?
what do the other roles do on those days?
Well, I thought it would be like that. Like all the roles like go into like a separate call or something, or we'd all do like if it's a DPS, a tank, and a support, like all the tanks would get together. They would talk about it. They would discuss. You know, hey, maybe we should do this, or maybe that would be more effective if
Yeah.
we did this. That way, instead of just one role, it's all the roles getting. The whole team is getting.
Ryan,
That-
what do you think of that? Or like, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I get that. Like each player or each role needs like their own attention, and like, it's just what do I do during that time? Like, I have to pick someone, and well, then I'm like all over the place, right? Because like once you get into like a groove, you're like, oh well, supports are doing this. This is what I think, you know. And then going into tanks right away is like, it's different.
So one thing, what if we do like one role per week and everyone sits in on it, and that would kind of give everybody insight into the other roles as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And like
like
their
that
decision
too.
making, it's like I just don't want it to be redundant. Like that's the only thing that like when I recommend it, I worry that it sounds redundant. But it's like SWAT says like how can he improve coming into scrims, and it's like maybe I can learn something from Spiffy or from Hot Bread or from Allie. Like I can learn, like we can talk to each other.
I get that, but I'm gonna be honest with you, like 100%. I feel like that's something that the team should be doing on their own. And I don't mean to like put that out as like being harsh or anything, but like when we're doing team practice time, that's the time that we want to work on specific team stuff. If you guys want to reach out to each other, that's why we have like the library. That's why you have access to each other. You guys can talk with each other. You can run stuff on your own in the off time, or you can get coaching lessons on your own too. I think I don't know. Based on how Shifty was talking about this, it makes it sound like he really like our time together is our time to focus on improving together. So the individual stuff is not as much of a highlight for him. He's not doing individual VOD reviews for his team. He's doing team VOD reviews, and they're working together as a team for those things. If you guys, I mean, honestly, you guys could veto me on this because I am one person saying this, but this is what I'm gleaming from his notes.
I agree.
All right. It sounds like we're split then. I'm not really.
Well,
sure.
I actually agree with Twitchy and Ryan, because I do kind of feel like what like I feel like Vandy, what you're leaning towards is like, and SWAT 2 is like a more individual thing, which like I think we do probably need to find like a center focus of like trying to being able to balance like team building stuff, like going over like team VODs, and then also having individual improvement time. But I'm not really sure if like the whole team could be getting as much value if we like dedicate an entire practice to like focusing on a single role. I also kind of feel like that's more of like an after hours thing. I mean, if you guys like feel totally differently, like feel free to like continue like sharing why you think it would be more beneficial. That's just my opinion.
If anything, we should just be more proactive in like setting up after hours individual like or the role thing. Just because like I don't know if it's like the luring of everybody being together, you can finally get somebody to help you, might be the case. So
I mean, I'm 100% on board with that. Like, if I encourage strongly that if you have an idea about what you want to do after out, like if you have a thing that you want to work on, set that up. I've been trying literally since the beginning of this team to focus as much as I can on like encouraging you guys to do extra things that you want to do. Some of you were here. I think some of you were here at the beginning, but there was like a class I did at the very beginning where we talked about like individual grandmasters, like all of you guys focusing on stuff and being proactive and being, you know, the masters of your own destiny. If you want to create a dual or role training thing, or you want to go do those things, you could set those up. Nobody's stopping you. It's not like a thing where it has to be sanctified by us. Like you guys can do that. I don't know. I feel like it does seem like an individual thing. If we're split down the middle on this, and I think both sides are kind of set where they're at, and there's nothing like if there's anything else anybody else wants to say it now. But if it's not, then I guess we'll probably discuss it separately, admin things, and I guess we'll have to make a decision. If it's 50-50, we have to cut the axe down at some point.
Just forget it. It was just an idea.
No, I want to encourage you to do ideas. I don't think that's bad. And Andy, if you want to put that together after one of the practices, like even if it's like
no, I only have a certain amount of time I can dedicate to the team, and I wanted to do it within that time. I don't have time to wrangle up people and get them to like sit down and talk to them about that. Like I have a life outside of it. Sorry.
Okay.
So just drop it.
Okay. What was the other thing? There was another thing that we were supposed to discuss with this too, right? It was I know there was another big one that he mentioned, right? Let's see. I literally have like 5 pages of notes. Just give me a quick second. You guys can talk if you want to. I need to look through the notes and figure out what the last part was.
Hey guys.
Hey, John.
Hello.
Yo. How's everybody doing on this fine evening?
I have a question, guys.
Yep.
Yes.
So what he said, you
No.
know. Okay, Lampshade, you can turn your mic down. So for the Hanamura strat, he said that it's easily susceptible to dive.
Yes.
So I think that just goes with all comps. Would we just have to like? What would we do with that? Would we be aware that?
I think what he's trying to say is if you
It's a
were
bad
running
comp.
against any pro teams or anything like that, there's no comp you could run that would make that work. Or there's no way you could run that to where it would work.
Okay.
Like I was just looking at that and I was like, because the team I used to play for, we'd always run dive Hanamura first point, and we'd all jump through top left window from attacking perspective and go around. And if you're running that bastion, we just swap our Hanzo for Trace or Sombra, and we just go around and we dive, hack, and you're just dead because there's nothing you can do about it. Because your shields don't matter once there's a Winston there.
Okay. I kind of wish we had the A/B team thing because we could scrim it and figure it out. That actually was what I was going to bring up. So this is a big question for the team. So he brought up A/B team thing not working. J-Rod and I actually have firsthand experience of that. Probably some other people here might have that too, but I know J-Rod and I specifically have had that experience on MetaMakers a long time ago.
Wait, what?
The A and B team thing where you had like, what was it, Entropy and whatever the fuck the stupid other name was. Anyway, so I know for a fact that doesn't work. I remember being part of the A and B team syndrome thing where they like, you guys are always talking shit to each other, and it's just like, it literally puts you against your own team. It's weird. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, that and like, what would, because of that, certain, even after they're like, okay, we're not going to do A and B team, what then happens is there's going to be certain clicks, which obviously occurs, period, but it's more tight and good and more so happen, and then you have situations where they're like, okay, we want to hit like this margin of time. Like with MetaMakers, they said, oh, we're gonna have this amount of time used just playing the game, period. And some people get frustrated because they wouldn't be invited into the 6-man and only have to do solo queue and then just not want to play because solo queue sucks penis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
But I think
it's good.
I think that like maybe an A and B team isn't the best idea, but we should do in-house scrims, and it's not because you're an A team or you're a B team. You're
like a randomized thing.
Yeah, like as long as we have like just people, because like we have an internal idea, like the Hanamura thing. What's the best thing to do? Can counter this? Blah blah blah. An example. I get it. Fucking dive beats it. I don't care.
Well, ADHD. Hold on. Before you continue, I want to ask you. That means let me make the assumption. That means we have to have an A and B team to do that, right? Or we have to have at least 12 people.
Yeah, we need 12 people, but we don't need to. It doesn't have to be Hop Red. You're on the A team. SWAT Cat, you're on the B team.
Okay,
it doesn't matter.
How do we decide that then?
If anything,
randomize.
We could do a randomized thing, or we could just see people who work well together because we want somebody who's effective so that we can know that you're doing your best against these people.
I know, like, from like a coaching perspective, I guess I wouldn't really call it a coaching perspective, but like when I like watch VODs and stuff, I look at like player synergy and like almost looking for those like dynamic duos of like two people who like work together almost unspokenly, because
Yeah.
like the less words the better, right? Like if you just do it, then if you do it right the first time without speaking about it, then it's just right?
Me and my man Pizza.
Hey.
It's like
Always.
player synergy is a thing. Like it's like sometimes Twitchy doesn't work well with somebody, right? Me, okay. Twitchy doesn't work well with me. But like, if that's the case, I mean, like,
Throwing.
not true. I don't know. I hope it's not true, but like that's just how it be, And it's like, it's not because you're bad. It's just because like play styles. Exactly, and it's just you're a human being. You're unique, and different.
All right.
Don't we also want to build up synergies with
Yeah.
the other players?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do. All right. So I don't want to keep. We're actually technically over the time right now by 2 minutes. Fuck. This is such an important thing to talk about. I think we're gonna have to come back to it though, and I think that's okay. We're not gonna make any of these changes this week. I think it's gonna be something we have to decide and think about now. During this week, and we'll start implementing it next week. So let's parking lot this idea of 6 or 12 players and figure out how we're gonna do this and how we're gonna scrim and put that in. And we'll parking lot this for tomorrow. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you guys just kind of think about this and let it roll around in your
Sure.
noggin.
I have a question.
Also, okay, you go.
No, are you sure?
Yeah.
Hi.
I was just gonna make a quick plug for someone else,
Okay.
if you want like personal coaching.
Sure.
So for like the 12 people, wouldn't it be best if we had like Ryan? Because if he's watching this synergy, he said he looks for player synergy. If he kind of chose the 6 teams, because he's not biased.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He's our coach who watches us play and sees who plays the best with one another. So he would have the best opinion on putting it. And it's like,
That's a good point. That's a good point. We have to get 2 more players. Anyway, we're gonna parking lot it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. That's a very good point. Remember that for tomorrow. That's the end of practice. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow is Tuesday, right?
Friday.
Tomorrow's Tuesday. I don't think. Ryan, what did you want to do for tomorrow? I think I had.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
cop-
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wanted to do like 3v3s on like 1 tank, 1 support, 1 DPS, and have a almost alt track off where as soon as you get your alt, you just press Q immediately, and the other team, like you guys are in different discords or whatever, and like one person's watching each team, and like as soon as like the team is trying to call the ult right before it happens, like you have to gauge like 50% and then 100%, because I don't want to like put you on every 10%, like because that's like a big jump. So let's start with 50 and 100%. So
right.
like you got to call like, oh, they have shatter, and then bam, hammer down happens like 10 seconds later.
Interesting. Okay, I like it. All right, that's for tomorrow then. I changed the schedule already, and that's it. What was the other thing? Was there anything else? I feel like I forgot something. Oh, you were gonna make a plug. Ryan has a plug for a coach, and that's
yeah.
officially the end of practice.
Peak. So Peak Cool